Hi, good evening, and welcome to the fourth installment of the Fair Trading Commission's Renewable Energy webinar. How can I get involved in renewable energy? So this evening is a conversation about energy efficiency. And this evening, the idea is that we're trying to just explore the idea of energy efficiency, because when we consider renewable energy, well, persons consider renewable energy, but the idea is that renewable energy is only just one component of when we think about a larger concept, which is sustainable energy. So sustainable energy now refers to both the energy efficiency as well as renewable energy. And we know there's a lot of thought going around right now. A lot of buzz is there surrounding renewable energy systems and getting involved in that aspect. But the idea is that you want to be efficient as much as you want to be able to replace the fossil fuel for generation or what's not. You also want to be in a place where you are efficient in the way you are actually using the energy that you have at home, right? So it is that we want you guys to be able to, we want persons to be able to reimagine how they use energy and understand that there's ways for persons to save energy, and that whole concept is what we call energy efficiency. So this evening we have with us Dr. Edwards and we have Mr. Blackman. We're going to let Dr. Edwards proceed first. He's going to present and share with us a bit about energy efficiency. And then immediately after him, we're going to have Mr. Blackman now obviously give his perspective as he will introduce himself when he comes on. And once that is done, we will have questions. We will throw questions to the panelists, and they would answer as best as they can to allow us to understand what it means to when we consider renewable energy, the energy efficiency, and what impact that can have on our lives in terms of our homes as well as our businesses or whatever. So Dr. Edwards, over to you.
Okay, good evening. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and to be able to share and hopefully provide some help to someone out there as they embark on their journey in energy efficiency. I would want to start by saying, first of all, that efficiency as a concept is nothing new. We've been talking efficiency for many years. There's efficiency in transportation. There are people who specialize in working that out. There's efficiency in even financial transactions, in terms of running a credit card and having a quick approval come back. So efficiency itself is a pretty broad topic, and it's something that man has been constantly looking at. But the conversation around energy efficiency is one that would have been arisen in the last 2 decades. Interestingly enough, it has not been driven by our desire to do better, to be more efficient. Incidentally, it's been driven by the acknowledgement that the resource energy, right? That resource has been called into question in terms of how much of it we have available to us still using traditional sources, and also how long can we continue to deal with the impacts that result from the types of sources that we have. So there are two concerns really. There's one, the quantity that we use, and the quantity of energy that we use has been attacked by the energy efficiency drive, right? But then there is the quality of the energy that we use, because we are primarily fossil fuel driven. The quality of energy has also been attracting attention. And to that end, you get into things like renewable energy and other clean energy type sources. So I like to separate the two, the tackling of the issue from a quantity perspective and then from a quality perspective. So today my task is to look at the quantity perspective. If we are using 100 units of energy today, can we apply energy efficiency concepts to get that down to maybe 90 or 80 or 70 or as low as we can, bearing in mind that at a point in time, the best that we may be able to do maybe to get it to 65. So if in 2022, we can get our consumption down from 100 to 65, that's the best that you can do with the available technology. It doesn't mean it ends there, because in another year, there'll be another technology, just like we've seen technologies in ICT grow at a rapid rate. We are seeing improvements in technologies as it relates to us using our energy efficiency resources. So the point here is that it's a continuous cycle. If you want to be always energy efficient, you have to be on the lookout for what's the best technology out there. There was a time when CFLs, for example, compact fluorescent lamps, were the thing to have. We were all told, go out and throw away those incandescents and get a CFL. But today it's a different story. And going to CFLs themselves would have gone through different generations. Yeah, we had the long, what we call a T8, the fat, long 4-foot tube. Then we went to the T5, and and it keeps coming down. And then we skip to the LED. So the energy efficiency journey is a continuous one. It doesn't mean that we need to be on a frenzy, that every time there's a new thing out there, you need to run and get it, because what that will do is to certainly interrupt your payback. You may make a decision when you buy something for X dollars and you say, okay, in a year's time, it will be paid for. And halfway along that journey, there may be another option. Just like with vehicles. You may see a really nice car that you want, and you buy it, and you figure over 10 years it will do you well. And then at 5 years, you're asking yourself the question, should I buy another new car? Right. So it's a journey really that we need to be on. Now, so specifically as it relates to the home consumers, energy efficiency tends to impact us in two areas. One, our use of electricity, and two, transportation. Right? Of course, in the area of electricity, we are concerned with how much is used by our electronics, by our home appliances, or refrigerators, our lighting, and all of those things. And the other area, transportation, which really is our use of fuels, meaning your transport may be gas, gasoline driven, or it may be diesel, right? I know that there's some innovative people out there that have been combining diesel with kerosene, even though it is not recommended by manufacturers. So we have a group doing that too. At the end of the day, most of our transportation is driven again by fossil fuels. So the energy efficiency motivation didn't come from our desire to be efficient. It came really from an acknowledgement that we need to address a problem. Problem of one, we can't keep buying these expensive fossil fuels, and two, we can't keep burning these fossil fuels that are creating climate change issues. Now, how do we attack these two areas? Look at electricity first. I think most people are familiar with the concept of an energy audit, which is much like an accounting audit, the same way the accountant would look at how you're spending your money. An energy audit looks at how you're using your electricity. And it's not a silver bullet, but it's a very interesting and useful tool. You may go to a presentation that says, get LEDs, they'll save you 80% on consumption for your lighting. And that's true. You may go out and spend a couple $100 in LEDs, and at the end of the month, you are looking to see returns. You are expecting your bill to drop from $400 to $350, and it doesn't happen. The reason it doesn't happen is because the portion of your energy consumption that goes towards lighting may only be $20. So you may in fact see 80% saving on your $20, which means that your bill may drop to $40. Yeah, 40 out of that. No, let me recalculate. If you've got a $400 bill and your lighting is 10%, which means $40 is going towards lights. Even if you save half of that, you're only going to save $20, right? So the energy audit really puts it in perspective. It lets you know how much you're spending on that air conditioner, how much you're spending on your lighting, how much you're spending on your refrigerator and your freezers, how much you're spending on your various electronic devices, etc. And once you have that picture, you can now decide, okay, where am I going to launch my attack? Am I going to try to bring down my lighting, which is using $40 a month? Or am I going to try to bring down my air conditioning, which is using $200 a month? Now, $200 is a much bigger target to aim at than $40, right? So it helps you to prioritize what you do first. The easiest thing sometimes does not give you the greatest return. Might be easy to change a bulb, but you may only save yourself $10. But if you attack the old refrigerator or that air conditioner that's on its last leg, right, you will find that your returns will be a whole lot better. So the energy audit will lay that out to you and allow you to make those decisions. So it will address, as I said, all of your electricity consumption devices, your ACs, etc. So if you are going to attack your lighting, meaning the lights are proven to be significant in the scope of your energy consumption, then we know LEDs are in fact very efficient. Fortunately, they're widely available. So all over the country, you will find in every retail store LEDs. So they're easy to get a hold of. The results are very good. So you're almost guaranteed some good savings in terms of consumption there. The air conditioners, again, we also have now the inverter ACs available. These inverter ACs are smarter. They're actually DC ACs. DC here meaning direct current, and AC meaning air conditioning, right? So the traditional air conditioner uses AC, that's alternating current, right? So BLMP delivers alternating current to your home, right? It comes in as AC, then it's converted to DC for most of your appliances, right? So when you deploy a DC air conditioner, it requires an inverter. So it will invert your AC into DC. And they're really smart because they will detect the load in a room. Can you imagine if you switch on the AC in a room and there's no one there, right? There's no one there. There's not a lot of cooling to be done. So the AC will detect that there's a minimum heat load and it will kind of roll back. It will run, at a lower rating just to keep the room comfortable. And as other people join the room, it will detect more heat and it will kind of ramp up then to still keep you comfortable. So when they leave the room, it will adjust again. So it's really smart. Unlike the traditional alternating current ones, which will simply run on the thermostat. You tell it run at 17 degrees and it does that regardless if you have someone in the room or not. They're not very smart. So updating your ACs to those will certainly bring some benefits. There's also things like solar water heating. Fortunately for us, at least 60% of our residential homes today have solar water heating, but there's still a small group who would have electrical water heating. So they will still be consuming from the grid. And you don't want that. You want to switch to solar water heating. So that's another very popular thing that people have been implementing in their homes to not only gain higher efficiencies, but to save money. Your refrigerators and your freezers, generally, if these things are over 10 years old, chances are that they'll become rather inefficient. People misunderstand how well their appliances are working. When a person says, my refrigerator works so well that even the water in my refrigerator is like ice. It's turning to ice. But if that happens, that's a problem. The water in your refrigerator is not supposed to turn to ice. It's just supposed to stay nice and cool. Your freezer, the freezer portion of your refrigerator is supposed to take the ice. So if you find that ice is inside your refrigerator, it means it has a problem. It doesn't mean that it's working so good. That is just a misconception. So many times when you see these things in refrigerators that are over 10 years old, you really need to upgrade that refrigerator. And in doing that, while it will cost you an initial expense, they can be 40% more efficient. So if you've been spending $50 on a refrigerator, you could end up spending, $25, $30, saving a good $20 every month. So it makes sense to make that change. I know sometimes people are reluctant because they think of the money I need to spend today, right? But you can't just look at the investment that you need today. You need to look at what will this old refrigerator cost me over the next 5 years if I persist with it. Just take a car. You may have a car that's really old. You may say to yourself, That gets me from point A to point B. Yes, it may do that, but it may use 20 gallons of gas from point A to point B. And if you had a newer vehicle, yes, you got to find some money, but that newer vehicle may use, 10 times less fuel than a really old vehicle. So we need not only to look at the initial cost, but also the operating, your running costs of those devices to make a decision. In addition to the device, we also need to look at how we use these things. I have a saying, and that is the most efficient watt is the one not used. So if you don't need that light on, when that light is off, it is operating in its most efficient state. So we need now, after we have looked at having the most efficient devices, we need now to adjust our own behaviors, our ability to manage these devices. Don't leave lights on without a reason. Make sure you don't leave your freezer door open. You don't leave your refrigerator open. You don't have, open moisture containers like a cup of water in the refrigerator where the moisture is exposed to the refrigerator. Those things will make your refrigerator inefficient. You don't install it where it gets direct sunlight hitting on it, because again, that will be heating up your refrigerator, which is trying to cool down. So it's almost like a fight going on in your kitchen if the sun is beating on your refrigerator all day, well, not all day long, for a few hours a day. So you don't want that. So we need to look at how we use the things that we have, how we use our refrigerators, how we use our ACs. Do we need to run it from 10 o'clock when you go to sleep until 6 when you wake up? Maybe you can shut it down at 1 in the morning, put it on a timer, because the room will stay cool. And certainly during this time of the year, you don't need it at all. So when you use your devices, how you use your devices all goes towards your efficiency. So processes are very important. I mean, in homes, it's a matter of managing our behavior. In other places like businesses, you might look at automating some common things, not depending on persons to turn off the AC because they're the last one to leave the building. Put it on a timer, let it shut down, or have a sensor on it so that it detects when no one is there and it turns off. You can put some of these things in your home too. If there are rooms that are very popular, used a lot, light burns a lot, if no one is there, the light can be off. So if you can program that using some kind of controlling device, then you can, again, save some cents, but cents do add up over time. So educating ourselves about how to use devices, even if they're efficient devices, is important. So enough said on the electricity. The other area is transportation. Transportation gives us a 2-for-1. And by that I mean, if we switch to the popular EV, not only do we become more efficient, but we also become clean at the same time. Remember, I said I like to separate the quantity issue from the quality issue, but the EV solves both. You get clean power, and it's actually more efficient than a vehicle running diesel and gas, even if those vehicles are very efficient. Years ago, the conversation around efficiency of vehicles would have been how many gallons per kilo, kilometer per kilo, how much fuel you use per unit distance, right? So if you had 10 kilometers, if one car used 1 gallon, the other car used 1.5 gallon, you knew which one was most efficient. But the conversation has progressed now, so that EVs now do offer us a more efficient option. So you get 2-for-1 with an EV. It's more efficient and it's also clean. But if you've got your gasoline vehicle, you've got your diesel vehicle, and diesel is more efficient, by the way, you would be surprised of the savings you get with a diesel vehicle. I myself had an SUV of particular model I wouldn't mention, running gas. For years, I would fill up every 5 days. All right, every 5 days, I needed to fill up. And I switched that vehicle for a diesel vehicle, right? And I may go into the gas station every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks. Nothing to do with the fact that diesel also costs less than gas, right? So there are lots of savings that you can get if you took the time to really analyze what the costs are. operating costs are very sneaky. People don't see the full cost because you're putting petrol, once a week. But how often do we sit down and tabulate how much you spend in a year and then compare? We don't normally do it. But if we did, we will see a big difference. So as it relates to transportation, that is the way to go. But we can also do basic things like making sure that the pressure in our tires are good, not unnecessary driving around. If you have to go up a few houses down the road, you can drive or you can walk. Maybe you should walk and not drive. So how you use your vehicle, even if it's efficient, is also an issue. So behavior is just as important as the equipment that you have, because we would know that we may even have the same car, drive the same amount, but your fuel consumption may be more than mine, and it's because of how you drive. You may, as we would say in Bajan vernacular, you may dig off and burn rubber and all of that to get from point A to point B. I can take a very calm drive and I will literally save because of how I drive. So how we use our equipment is also very, very important. So I think my 15 minutes might be up, so I will pause there pending any questions.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Edwards. A couple of things. Well, first thing first, I forgot to ask you at the beginning. Can you give us a brief background in terms of your background? Sorry, a brief description of your background so that people understand your qualification to speak to energy efficiency.
Okay. I actually worked in ICT for 12 years. And in around 2008, I took an interest in energy because that was one of our recent oil crises, if I might put it that way, where the prices of oil started to go up. And I took some time off from pursuing ICT and looked seriously at energy and spent some time just trying to help people to deal with what would have been rising prices in their electricity bill. From there, I was inspired to go back to school. This would have been after leaving school 20 years. Went back to school, did a PhD in energy efficiency and economics, where I would have looked more deeply at the issues impacting energy. And that would be with a background in physics and computer science. And physics in itself has all of the basics required for dealing with things related to electricity. So I was able to combine that with technology actually, and build out tools that could help customers to be able to, collect data and do analysis and show people basically where they were literally losing their dollars, and then to determine the appropriate way forward. So I would have spent 3 years doing a PhD in energy efficiency. And from then until now, I've been working in the sector. I primarily work with the multilaterals and regional institutions. I don't really have any business customers because it's just been easier to work with multilaterals. Spending most of my time looking at policy and developing appropriate programs for countries across the region now instead of the hands-on type work. So I'm enjoying that. Countries are developing more interest in actually, transforming the energy sector and transforming the energy sources from the traditional over to clean energy. So I've been working with various agencies to help get that done. But fortunately, there are many who have an interest in Barbados. There's the UNIDO, the UNs, the World Bank, the IDBs, CARICOM for sure, the CDBs, the CDMAs even. So there are many institutions who are playing their part, and I'm spending most of my time these days working with them to help to bring real and appropriate solutions to people.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Edwards. But a quick question. So we're talking about energy efficiency, right? And you touched on something that just for the benefit of everyone else in terms of the general public, you touched on, you said the saying that you have is the most efficient watt is the one not used, right? Is the watt not used, right? No, we understand that to be no along the lines of energy conservation, right? As opposed to energy efficiency, because the understanding is energy efficiency obviously refers to using the best use of what you currently have. We're using less of what you're currently using to get the same result, right? Essentially. And conservation obviously is the case where you're trying to avoid using something at all. So in terms of our patterns, in terms of turn off lights and those stuff, those things can now cross over into conservation. But the question I want to ask you then is, given because you said you would have done work helping persons to understand their energy use and whatnot. So I'm assuming you're referring to audits and stuff, helping persons with home audits and stuff. So what has your experience been like with everyday persons for them to understand? So when persons have understood what their energy use was, and what did that allow for them to be able to do? And I'm referring to persons who would have may have never had any experience or any exposure at all to energy, where they would have just been using energy just because.
Admittedly, I don't work in the residential sector. And the reason is it's a business reason is pretty simple. If you have a bill that is $400, you may consider that to be high. But the reality is that when you engage an auditor to come in, and then you have to do 2 days work, right? And you may be, 10 miles from me. So you need to incorporate that commuting, and you spend 2 days, then you write your report, 3 days, 4 days of work, and you cost that. It looks onerous compared to what persons may be spending a year. Because 400 times 12, when you work that out, and I'm saying to you, this is what you need to pay me to do this work, and you've now got to go off, right? And spend money on the lights, on the AC, and whatever else I suggest to you. It really doesn't work very well. And I must confess that I have for a while struggled with the most effective way to help individuals like what you're talking about. I can't say that I've found that yet, but I do share information very freely with anyone who dares to ask somebody that says, Dr. Edwards, I have this XYZ, what can I do? I happily share that, but from a business perspective, I tend to work more with the larger, as I said, and occasionally with larger businesses, which even though it's a different scale, a lot of the issues are the same.
Yeah.
Whether you're small or large, and you're running incandescents, you have the same problem. If you're running 10-year-old ACs, you got the same problem. If you're running 20-year-old refrigerators, you got the same problem. So the solutions are different scale, but the basic approach is the same. So that in working with businesses that I have worked with, I've seen tremendous conversion from electrical water heating to solar water heating. I've seen businesses invest significantly in making that transportation. I've seen many offices tear out all of the old CFLs and incandescents and put in those efficient LEDs, and have seen returns from it. So businesses are certainly doing it. And if they can do it and benefit, I think individuals at home can do the very same thing.
Okay, thank you. There's one question I want to ask you before I go over to Mr. Blackman. So given all that you have said, understanding that, I guess the skill of doing an energy audit for residential, for home, isn't necessarily practical for the auditor. And then therefore the cost it would be practical to give them a cost that will make sense to the residential owner, because obviously the savings that they would then obtain from any changes to their house is going to be obviously now eroded by the fees that they would have to pay for the audit. So the question I want to ask you then, what can you advise? So I am John Public, right? What will you tell me, right? Outside of going to get an auditor to come and audit my house in terms of, so I can see where my energy is being used. Outside of that, what would you suggest? Because you said that somebody could come and ask you any questions, but if I don't know Dr. Edwards, I pass through the street, I don't know that you are that background, I can't answer the question. So what would you, right now on this platform, what would you say to the public, no, to everyday person? What would you say to them to suggest for them to outside of being able to access an auditor, what would you suggest to them as an easy step that they can take for them to at least start the process or well, let me not put the words in your mouth, but yeah. So what would you suggest to a person if
Well,
it's not the audience? Mhm.
this firm here in itself is certainly a good start. This would be no cost to access and to hear some of the things that they ought to do. Our ministry has from time to time pushed certain things that they believe would benefit the citizenry. For example, the use of LED lights has been promoted length and breadth of Barbados. So there shouldn't be a person that doesn't know that's the lighting solution they need to move towards. ACs again, perhaps we need to engage our retailers, continue to engage them, I should say, so that they advertise efficiency things. There's some things out there that, for example, BNSI is responsible for standards in Barbados. They've recently engaged in a labeling program, which, for example, would label all the refrigerators in a retail store, and it would rate them as in A, B, C, D, E, or F, right? Now, the country would have set a standard where it says nothing worse than F. As a matter of fact, only to E. If you had a refrigerator rated F, it failed. So we've got A, B, C, D, and E on the retail floor. And on that label, it has the rating of the individual fridge. It tells you the average cost to run it for a year. It tells you how much it will consume over a year. It has its price, of course. And that information is there so that when a person goes to shop and they walk to a retail store, they see those that are labeled A, they see the ones that are a B, and the ones that are C, and they'll see the price. Truth is that the one that's labeled C, which is a bear pass from school days, we know C is a bear pass, right? So for those ones, they may be cheaper than the ones that are rated A, right? So the customer has a choice. Do I buy the most efficient refrigerator and pay a little bit more? Or do I buy a slightly cheaper one, which might be a C or a D, and pay a little bit less? And depending on the disposable income of the client, they will pick the one that they can manage. But certainly for people who can make the best choice, will choose the A, right? Mm-hmm. So over time, customers will learn to shop smartly. So when they're going to buy that washing machine or that refrigerator or even that TV, look, check the labels, see what is consuming, so you make an informed decision. So governments are doing things to help citizenry, and the labeling program is an excellent tool for small devices, right? And this is really targeting the residential market. So I would say to them, look out for firms like these, pay attention to those energy tips that the ministries might give. And when you're going to retail organizations, ask questions about devices. This one costs more than that one. How much do they consume? Ask the questions. If they're not labeled as yet, make some demands. There's Energy Star does it with laptops and TVs and various things. So if you see that blue star stuck on an appliance, it's not there for sale. It means that particular appliance fell within the top 25% as it relates to performance for appliances in that category. So if you're looking at televisions and you got that blue star, you're in the top quadrant, right? So we need to ask questions, but retailers are making small steps. We need to continue to put more pressure on them to help customers to shop smarter.
So I have a question. You were giving information just now. I appreciate what you're saying. My question or concern is that as a consumer, we are not informed well enough to be able to make those decisions. Because you were talking about star just now on a label on an item. Now I've seen the star, but I've never known how to interpret that star. I generally know that it means some level of energy efficiency, but you just put a number or a percentage to that for me. And yes. I guess my question is, are we educating our public enough so that they are better able to make better decisions?
Well, the easy answer, unfortunately, is no. We do it from time to time, but we don't do it consistently. So if you see an ad giving good information today and you see nothing for several months, so people will forget. So the impact really goes away. So I think we do need, and the ministry has acknowledged this, our smart funds have, both of them included a promotional part of those funds where they're supposed to be informing the public. As it relates to vehicles, we would have seen over the last few months several little small promotions about using your car better, the use of the EV, preference for smaller cars. So we've seen that recently, but what we need to see is we need to see it consistently, not just on CBC TV, but on the various social media platforms, on websites for every agency who claims to have a customer concern at heart, whether it be customer protection in the case of Fair Trade Commission, BNSI who set standards for appliances, etc. All of these websites, along with their social media platforms, need to be constantly pushing those educational bits of information so that over time, people will get accustomed to asking those questions, looking for those things. So we just need to be consistent about it. But we definitely have not done that in the past.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let me move to Mr. Blackman, because we got more questions as well too, but I can allow Mr. Blackman to present his piece, and then we will come back to some more questions to both you and Mr. Blackman, Dr. Edwards.
Okay, no problem.
So Mr. Blackman, the floor is yours.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you again for inviting CIBC First Caribbean to be part of this fourth webinar. As you indicated, Mr. Marshall, you asked for a little bit of background. So my background in renewable energy, not just encompasses the financing side, but on a personal level, I have, like most Barbadians, I had a lot of questions and very few answers. And a few years ago, I would really market the serious launch pad for this journey as around March 2018, when I was on holiday and I set myself the goal of completing a project to assess and make a decision on a renewable energy system. And that, led to me investing in solar panels initially, but also simultaneously doing an energy efficiency audit of sorts. And I'm just going to, I know Dr. Edwards would have shared his format for dealing with large multinationals and large corporate entities. But I can also share in terms of the private Barbadian individual who is thinking about going on this journey, and also share some real life experience. I actually have one of the electricity usage monitor tools that ironically was literally within arm's reach of my my home office. And I'm just going to hold it up to the camera. This is just one example. It's not displaying very well, but I will actually show an image of it. But this is basically a plug-in device that you can then insert any other device into it, and it will give you a sense as to the total kilowatt hours consumed over a given period, depending on how you set it up. So there's some very user-friendly tips. Another resource that we can direct persons to for consideration in terms of guiding their own energy efficiency research path is the BREA, Barbados Renewable Energy Association website. If you go to brea.bb, and you actually go and you look for downloads, you will actually see an energy efficiency guide that was published that answers a lot of the private individual questions. All right, so I'm going to share my screen and take you through a brief presentation in terms of some of the considerations with respect to energy efficiency, as well as some of the financing options that would apply. All right, tell me if you're, I believe you can now see my screen.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yes, we can.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so the most basic question, why should you take your hard-earned money and invest in energy efficient technologies? Well, the main reason most persons will consider this is the benefits far outweigh the costs. And while in many investment scenarios, these returns are exclusively over the long term, I hope that you can appreciate that there are also some quick wins, some low-hanging fruit for individuals to achieve not only long-term savings, but in many instances, I've personally heard from persons who have seen paybacks of months to years, depending on your starting point. It's all relative, so depending on how many watts your existing bulbs have, your savings could be higher or they could be lower. And of course, we have the positive environmental impact. And for those persons that are thinking of investing in renewable energy as well, energy efficiency technologies are the perfect complement to that investment. You don't want to be generating fantastic capacity, but not adjusting your consumption so that you can maximize your benefits for yourself and for your family. So basic question. I think Dr. Edwards did a fantastic job of covering off many of the opportunities for energy efficient technologies to come into play. But I just want to run through a number of the low-hanging fruits that are accessible to persons. We have the LED bulbs, which can actually save persons up to 5.5 times in terms of energy consumption. And I will jump to some analysis done by BREEA a few years ago that's published on the website I just mentioned, brea.bb/downloads, and you can look for the energy efficiency document and you will see that evidence there. And as Dr. Edwards said, we have 60% penetration of solar water heaters in Barbados. Now that is fantastic, but it also says that 40% of Barbadians have the opportunity to, I would say, it's a significant upgrade to go from electric water heater to a solar water heater. You get those savings, and it's also good for the environment. We are fortunate in the Caribbean to not have to be very concerned about heating. Our neighbors in the more temperate countries have to worry not just about cooling, but also about heating in the winter. We just need to focus on energy efficient cooling devices, whether that's a stand-up fan, a ceiling fan, or air conditioned unit. And as Dr. Edwards mentioned, those new air conditioning units that come with the built-in inverters, those are by far known to be far more energy efficient. We also have our top mounted freezer with the fridge layout. These are typically believed to be more energy efficient. Similarly, your front loaded washing machines are known to be more energy efficient than the top loaded ones. So as you look at how that appliance is approaching the end of its useful life, or it has served you well, and you're thinking about replacement, you definitely want to be looking at those Energy Star labels to see not just that initial cost, but yes, what are the long-term maintenance operational costs that you can factor in to get a true picture of the cost of ownership and the true savings to you and your families. I didn't include it here because that's a more significant investment, but I agree 100% with Dr. Edwards that as part of a holistic family energy efficiency review, you can definitely consider the availability of those electric vehicles in the market at the time you're ready to purchase as an alternative to a typical combustion engine vehicle. So how do you get started? Many businesses in Barbados stock LED lights. Many of the air condition companies also stock these energy efficient units. You wanted, and this is a basic starting point. The team at these locations are also quite versed in providing you with some customized assessments of your actual energy consumption and helping you to calculate the savings for you. So I'd say, yeah, open the phone book, select a couple, at least 2 or 3, so you can get some price comparison quotes so you know what's fair, what's reasonable. They will assist in many instances. Sometimes these same business places will assist you with the energy audit at the household level to see what solutions will be a good fit for you, and help you do that calculation of that cost benefit analysis. And again, the payback period for these investments is really fantastic in terms of from an investment point of view. Most investments, are very long term. You're in there 5-10 years. However, I've personally worked with clients and individuals who, even if after replacing their incandescent bulbs, they've seen paybacks in some instances in months to years. So there are lots of opportunities, there are lots of low-hanging fruit, and I want to encourage persons to do their research and look at those numbers and then make a decision. At Christmas time, we know everyone in Barbados is looking to pull down the curtains, do a good old-fashioned Bajan spruce up. Well, I want to challenge Barbadians out there to consider that energy efficiency review as part of that annual spring cleaning spruce up, Christmas spruce up. As those appliances become more dated, less energy efficient, and they're starting to make noises that they weren't making before, not cool as effectively as before, you definitely want to be alert to the fact that the replacement is pending, and you should do so not just based on the aesthetics and the decor, but my suggestion to you would be that they're very attractive and aesthetically pleasing energy efficient devices. And I want to suggest to you that that also be a factor in determining what appliances, what brands, what models you will replace your existing devices, your existing appliances, so that they're more energy efficient going forward. And of course, where you need some additional financial support to make these purchases possible, CIBC First Caribbean is pleased to partner with you. So here are just a couple of the the renewable energy financing solutions. We have a fantastic photovoltaic financing offer, which offers up to 100% financing, 10 years to repay, very attractive rates. We also provide financing of electric vehicles. And of course, in terms of energy efficiency, many clients sometimes tap into the equity in their home to basically finance these as part of their Christmas spruce up. So this is happening in many households today. And I want to alert those Barbadians that are part of that 40% that don't yet have a solar water heater or are only looking at the, putting up fresh curtains. Why not put, look, if you have dated incandescent bulbs, consider putting up very energy efficient LED bulbs and looking at some of the other energy efficient devices. Now, Dr. Edwards would have shared a number of behaviors to help you keep your costs low. And I'm just going to add a few of those, a few items for consideration. Many clients of ours have seen the benefits of outdoor solar lights, that where the investment is definitely worth it, where you don't have to be having those lights, especially when that's combined with motion sensors. Think of the security need, but also the opportunity to have a renewable energy source in terms of the solar security lights that are also tripped based on motion sensing. I also want to encourage persons to consider unplugging devices that are not in use. As long as it's plugged in and you see a light, it's burning some form of current. In some instances, this may be facilitated either directly by unplugging. Some persons have the UPS switches where you can just flip the switch so that it's very easy to turn on or off the flow of current, but that's low-hanging fruit, whether that be a blender that's very easy to switch off, as well as some of those smarter monitors. Washing machines, why wash a half load when you can, wait a day or two and save that energy and have a full load. We're also blessed with, brilliant sunshine most days of the year. And whether you have a dryer or not, taking advantage of those bright, sunshiny, blistering days to dry your clothes is a fantastic opportunity available to us. And I want to suggest that be something that you consider. For those persons that are up and moving early in the morning, I am one of those persons. I'm up with the crows or the chickens and the roosters. Usually up and moving by about 5. And what I would say is that, when I get up that early, I would switch on my internal lights. But I could tell you that as soon as that sunlight breaches the horizon, I have switched to natural light. My curtains are opened up and those indoor lights get shut down. Another tip I would share, which I found very interesting, is that even having indoor plants can actually help with cooling, as that can help to take some of the heat out of a room. So there are lots of tips that have been shared tonight by Dr. Edwards earlier as well. So in terms of clients that are persons that are thinking of doing some of these energy efficiency audits and looking at the financial requirements, it's very similar to any consumer loan. You want to gather those pro forma invoices. You want to have your proof of ID, proof of address. And of course, you want to authorize the bank to gather a credit bureau report on your behalf. If you're salaried, you want to provide your most recent pay slip, monthly pay slip. If you're a monthly paid worker, if you're a weekly paid worker, you want to provide, the pay slips to give the picture for a full month. And then that job letter should be less than 2 months old. We don't discriminate against self-employed persons. We do need proper financial records, and for the last 2 years would suffice, or your last 2 years tax returns. So that is a quick overview of one other thing I'll mention is, while we do have very customized financial solutions for renewable energy systems, as well as general consumer loans, I really just want to stress that persons that have a mortgage already can benefit from even better rates and terms by tapping into the equity, any equity in that property, to finance these type of long-term beneficial projects at the best rates. You have the option of doing them over a longer term if you choose, but we always recommend that you tie the financing term to the useful life of the asset. So that is it in a nutshell in terms of our presentation for today. Any questions or comments, Sheldon and team?
Okay, thank you. Excuse me, thank you, Mr. Blackman. I have a couple of questions. Well, the one that I had, I want to flag with you. Okay, so I want to have an idea in terms of the banking sector. Well, in your case, obviously speaking on behalf of CIBC First Caribbean, as it relates to energy efficiency, because a lot of banks do offer renewable energy loans, right? So those are obviously special rates for renewable energy. But public comes to the bank, they have intentions to do energy efficiency measures in their house, right? They want to change out old equipment for newer, more efficient equipment. Do banks treat a loan for something like that purpose as a green energy, a renewable energy loan, or would that be treated as a regular loan where a person has to pay a higher rate? I just want to have an idea for persons in general. So what will persons have to, would it generally be considered as just a regular, they'll have to get a regular personal loan, or will be a case where it would be given once they can provide the information that is necessary, it can be treated as a component of the renewable energy loan?
Sure, excellent question, Sheldon. So what I'll say is that each institution is different. What I'll do is I'll speak to the CIBC First Caribbean approach. What I can say is, as I mentioned, there are several options and solutions available where clients, let's say, are existing mortgage clients and choose to leverage the equity in their home. They benefit from the best rates in the market, which are always our mortgage rates. We do have promotions that run where we will waive negotiation fees for anything that is related to renewable energy at specific periods in time. And what I can say to you is that persons that are desirous of pursuing energy efficiency review or upgrade during the month of December will benefit from this type of reduced or fully discounted fees from CIBC First Caribbean. We are always running, we always have available very competitive and attractive rates to clients. So what I would say is that there isn't a great differentiation between the renewable energy and the general consumer loan from this perspective of rates. What I would say is that we pride ourselves on giving our clients the best financial advice. And while, let's say, if we contrast this with, say, the traditional renewable energy photovoltaic loan, where we're offering up to 10 years to repay, what I would say is that because of the more attractive payback period, we actually will encourage clients to, take a shorter term, consider taking a shorter term loan for an investment in energy efficiency, providing technologies so that, you know, they're not overpaying on that investment, and they can enjoy an even better return. So we will customize the solution based on the client's needs. But what I can say to you is that whether the client is an existing mortgage client or a client that doesn't have a mortgage, but just wants to do energy efficiency overhaul, we have very affordable solutions that are designed to help them maximize their returns and also provide them with the right financial advice in terms of matching the payback period to the useful life of the technologies being purchased.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Blackman. Okay, so as I was listening to Dr. Edwards and Mr. Blackman, no, I realize I keep hearing from you guys that there's benefit. We understand there's financial benefit to energy efficiency. Mr. Blackman, you would have mentioned in one of your slides that, you know, you must consider the financial benefits, not just the cost, right? And that is something that also Dr. Edwards would have referred to in his presentation as well. Now, when I consider that, another part, so that is the foundation, you know, you consider the benefits in terms of the finances, in terms of what you can save. But then at the same time, in the same breath, both of you guys would have spoken to the fact that energy efficiency, the savings from energy efficiency measures is relative. Both of you guys have made it clear, because as Dr. Edward would have said, you might very well be able to save 80% of your lighting by changing your bulbs, but your lighting might only be 10% of your total energy usage, your consumption. So therefore, the overall saving is 80% of lighting, but that is only 10% of your bill, which is still a small fraction. However, another person, so Susan, she might now have a higher, she might only have a fridge and she might only have a fridge at home, and then everything else is just light. She uses a lot of lights. So her lights, in her case, might be 60% of her energy use, her consumption, right? So now in her case, the savings for the light, if she change her light bulbs, obviously is a case now where it is going to reflect a bigger saving overall. But then again, based on what Mr. Blackman would have mentioned too, the other thing is it all depends on your starting point, because if you were already, let me say your bulbs were already at, let's say you were already using 20 watt bulbs and you're now changing to 10 watt bulbs. Yes, you're improved, you've got a more efficient bulbs, but the truth is that your savings is going to be less than a person who would have had 100 watt incandescent bulbs who've now gone to 5 watt bulbs. Or even if they went back to the same 10 watts, it is a bigger change for them. So it's going to be a bigger saving. Now, all of that being said, right? So I'm going somewhere. So all that being said, it is very, 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 so all I'm hearing tonight is that it is very, very important and critical for everybody to do some form of energy audit. Now, because the idea is that you have to first understand and see where your energy is being used, because it's relative to what happens in my house, not going to happen at Mr. Blackman's house, not happen at Dr. Edwards' house. It's not going to happen at anybody else's house. So the idea is that we have to first understand what is happening within our own homes, assess that situation, so you can identify where the opportunities are, so that you can then work to suit. Now, I started with that first. I started with all that background and all of that there, because I wanted to ask the question. Now, Dr. Edwards, you could probably help me, because I'm going to speak as if, you know, so I'm John Public. Now, I notice in my kitchen, my kettle, on the bottom kettle, the electric kettle, it has 1500 watts on the bottom. It says that for the power, right? I notice my lights, all my lights in my house are currently 10 watt bulbs. And assuming that all of the appliances in my house have a fixed wattage, that and I'm assuming that, you know, because I understand that some things will vary. So like an AC unit will, inverter AC unit will be fluctuations, and therefore it's harder to monitor that. But given the pretty straightforward appliances that have flat power rating, and I know how often I use these devices, because the reality is that we as humans, we are creatures of habit. So everybody has a routine. People wake up at a certain time, people turn on lights, turn off lights, go to work, come home, do the same thing. They got a pattern. So you can know how much time you're using different things. So it's Dr. Edwards, the question I'm asking you, just me as John Public, I can see these numbers on my appliances. I know how much I'm using in terms of my, I know how often I'm using these appliances and what's not. My bill, I know my bill has on it every month, it says that I use 150 kilowatt hours. I see that. I'm not sure what it means, but I see 150 kilowatt hours. Help me understand how I can put all those things together for me to have an idea or a picture of the energy usage in my house, given what I presented to you. I hope that makes sense.
I understand where you're going, but I would not approach it in that way. You're almost trying to make people energy auditors. The truth is, right? If you can do that kind of tracking in your own home, you could have a side job. You could go and do it for anybody else. So it takes a good technical understanding to do it that way. My suggestion would be more like one of the suggestions that Gregory made. That is to get that little device that can measure the consumption and put it onto the appliance. Make sure you know how to attach it properly, right? And let it tell you what it's using, right? So you can do that for different things so that you have an idea, well, this one is twice as much as that one, etc. But to send a user to look for the wattage to start with, and then what? He then has to figure out, well, how many hours a day do I use this? So he now has to track his activity and maybe have a piece of paper there making a note every time he boils water to make tea. And it's really asking a lot of a user, unless he's an enthusiast, right? In which case he can get into monitoring my TV and how much TV I watch and measuring how often you have on a light is the worst, because the light probably goes on and off a number of times in a day, and you're not around. You may live there, but you're not at home all the time. So you will need then the cooperation of everybody else in your household. And you may be an enthusiast, but they're irritated by it. So trying to do that kind of micromanaging of every watt in a manual way is, to my mind, hopeless, right? But enthusiasts do hopeless things. It will be easier to get that little device that Gregory was trying to show us and just plug it in, and you can leave it there for the week, and you come back and say, wait, over the course of a week, for my kettle, I use X amount, right? So you know, okay, that's what's happening with the kettle. That would might be an approach. It would be too stressful for the average person to try to do those calculations. And then you start getting into which wattage you're on. You're on 220 or you're on 110, right? And then when you start getting into equations for electricity and physics, and then they say, well, just throw the whole thing in the garbage bag and give it to the guys in the past. You had enough, right? All you do is stress out yourself and your family, and then you go out with your doctor and spend the money you're trying to save.
Well, hang on a minute, Sheldon. Dr. Edwards. Okay, so I understand what you're saying, and it's quite funny, but I understand what you're saying. But from the same pathway that Sheldon was going down, can an option be, you're in your house, let's say I'm running my fridge, I'm running my washing machine, I might have a light or two on. I go outside and I look at my meter. And it had the old-fashioned meters before we had the EMIs, but we have But you see the meter spinning and you say, hang on a minute, that's going really fast. What do I have on in my house that is causing that to go so fast or tick over so quickly? So that the information you're getting instant information about your behavior, your energy usage, and you see the feedback loop is the energy that you're going to have to pay for in the end.
Okay.
I mean, can that not be considered like a more back of the paper energy measurement, usage measurement?
Again, if you're an enthusiast, sure. But for me, my meter is, matter of fact, I haven't seen my meter in 5 years. You know why? First of all, like the power no longer comes to read it
Yes,
because
that's true.
there's hardly anything to read. So you're now trying to train me to be a BLNP employee, another side job.
But it's just a series of numbers, though. It's just, I mean, is it not just a series of numbers?
But it's not like it used to be, you know. The smart meters
It
don't
is
need all
true.
them moving parts. Them moving parts is maintenance and problems, right? They record all that by running that data across their very own power lines,
Yes.
which, by the way, can run internet too. But we never pursue that, right? So even if it didn't, right? Some people's meters are closer to the road, which means you send me outside. But it's outside to start with, so you're sending me outside, right? And see, moving fast is a relatively thing. A car may pass close to you at 30 miles an hour. You said that man passed me real fast, pass close to me. If you were driving at 30 miles an hour and the car passed you at 35 miles an hour, and like it overtaking you slowly. So you see, speed is relative.
But no, well, yes. Okay. I
So
get
when you
that.
say spinning fast, the question is, what does that really mean?
But
I
no,
may
it means
interpret
that
it different to you.
But no, it means that when I looked at it last week, it was going at what looked like a certain rate, and this week is looking faster. And 2 weeks ago, it was going even faster. That's what speed is a relativity thing. It's
But-
looking
but-
at it different from one point to another.
Yes, but your energy consumption don't work like that from week to week. It might more work like from morning till noon to
Well,
evening.
right, but that's exactly my point, though. That
And
you're
are
saying
you
exactly
around morning, noon, and evening to
No, but
make this
you're saying
observation?
exactly my point. Because my point is, and obviously I can't include the times when you're not at home and you have other persons in the house using the equipment. But for the times that you look at your output, and in this case, the output is your meter, you can say to yourself, okay, let's look at it this way. If I had an app that was connected, the same with meter that you're talking about, that was connected to the house, and I see at today's date, it was ticking over at a specific rate, and which is higher than last week's rate. And I say to myself, hang on a minute, this is going at a specific rate. This looks higher than what I normally am used to seeing when I look at this meter. And I go in my house and I say, what is on? What is running? And let's say you're advanced, you have your car, your electric vehicle plugged in. And then you say, oh, hang on a minute. That's my electric vehicle that's plugged in, that's charging. If I plug up my electric vehicle and stop it from charging now, it backs off. So I get that feedback information based on what my output, what my costs, my eventual costs will look like. And
Well,
it cannot be an indication. I'm not saying it's a perfect measure, but an indication of how I can use my behavior to monitor my cost or control my costs by changing my behavior.
Well, I suppose, but it's not just your behavior. If you're in a home with a number of people, you would now need to be knowing what is everybody doing. And trust me, it'll end in the same way, stress and irritation. However, you touched on something that I really love. You said if you have an app, there are devices that you can have, don't need to be outside your home. It could be inside on your counter to be feeding you with your level of consumption, even in a graphical form. And you know how we can watch your heartbeat on a monitor? Right. So there are devices that can do that. We may need some integration. So you are speaking about an opportunity for a good young technology person to design something that will be able to interface with your panel, because the panel is aware of all the consumption that running through it, right? Integrate some nice little Wi-Fi adapter in there, transmitting to your little device, whether it be an app on your phone or a separate little device, so you can see that information. These things partially exist, not the full solution I'm talking about, but it's completely doable. So enthusiasts now don't need to be engineers and go investigating things they don't know nothing about.
Or jump
Just
through
read,
hoops. Yeah.
read the screen,
Yes.
right? So I like that thinking, all right? So I say we have a UE student here. They need to take that away and come back with something that we can have people, you know? So some of that equipment is already available. It's just a matter of getting it integrated easily into our power systems,
Our lives.
so that customers will have that.
Okay.
So I like your thinking, the sophisticated
The other
version.
thing I wanted to bring into this conversation is how, and I know that Sheldon might have a different position to me, but how our conversation about energy efficiency builds into the renewable energy discussion. So, and for me, it can be a complicated conversation, but it can be a very simple conversation. So for example, let's say you have a battery in your home, you've invested in a battery. Your battery is a specific size. Even easier, you invested in solar panels. Let's say you have a 3 kilowatt system solar panels. If you've said to yourself, okay, I now have solar panels on my roof, I'm getting energy, quote unquote, free from the sun. Well, my first statement is that while the sun beating down on your roof is free, there is a cost to convert that energy into an energy form that you can use in your house. That's my first statement. But then the other statement is, if you say to yourself, that energy is free energy, and you then, in addition to having your solar panels, which is 3 kilowatts on your roof, you determine I'm going to run my AC even more now, keep my windows closed and run my AC. I am going to have my lights on because the energy is free and I have solar panels. I'm going to install a dryer. In addition to my washing machine, I'm going to install a dryer in my home. And now the net position of $0 that you were thinking when you invested in those solar panels, you're actually finding yourself having to pay money to the utility company because you've now increased your usage, because in your mind the energy is free. I have the solar panels, so I can now run my cost up. And the discussion about energy efficiency should go in the other direction. If you want to get the most out of having invested in the renewable energy installations that you have to consider what is the most efficient way of using that energy, because the less you use, the less energy you consume, the more money you can make on the other end from selling that excess energy to the utility company, plus or minus the cost of fuel. Yeah. So looking forward to your feedback on that.
Well, I would share an interesting view that is different to the traditional one. We would say to people, do an audit, see what you can save that, and then when you become efficient, move on to deploy a renewable energy system, right?
Mhm.
That road could take time. It'll take time for you to change out this, change out that, move along, and then you may not see the level of returns that you may have hoped for because of something you just introduced that is considered in an economic sense called the rebound effect. The rebound effect says basically, when I save you $25, what do you do with it? If you save $25 today, what do you do with it? Do you put it in the bank? Do you spend it on other things? Do you upgrade your existing systems? Right? Do you give it away? So what you do with that saving is very much an issue for the human behavior. Maybe somebody needs to do the research to tell us what people are most likely to do, right? So when you go down that path, the savings may not be available to you as cash to get to the renewable energy stage, right? So whether or not you make it there is a question mark. However, I think, right, that given the cost of getting there, because once you start with an audit, that's a cost there already. Too much that more than you want to pay. And then to buy all the things again, to change out your equipment is not huge, but it can cost a bit. If you're changing a refrigerator and an air conditioner unit, you can get it to thousands, right? So that path can have some points at which you really got to lay out some cash, all in trying to get to the point where you deploy an RE system. Now, if your consumption, right, can be provided by a 3 kilowatt system, I would say to those small users, and earlier I confessed that I have not really come up with a way to reach the small people. And this is what came to mind for me so far. That is, if a 3 kilowatt system can satisfy you, here's what: put in a 3K system. Put on a 3 kilowatt system and grid tight, right? Which means that you will use what you produce. If you ever need more, meaning at night, because the PV system is going to shut down between 4 and 5 o'clock, right? So when you need to, you pull from BLMP, and come sometime in the morning, 9:30 or whatever, your system comes up again, you're using your own. So you kind of net off. So at the end of the month, BLMP looks at your system and says, okay, that person used 300, but they generated 500, and they sold us the extra 200. So here's a check, right? So you have shifted yourself by putting an RE system now. You have put yourself in a position to make some money if you use less than what your system is generating, right? And having done that, you have a check coming in. No, this is for people who are small, right? And with that checks coming in, you can still then embark on the RE process. Now, we're accustomed the other way around. We tell people, do your audit, invest in RE, and then put in a renewable energy system. Here's it. If you're small, I'm saying to you, put in your RE system now, right? Put it in now. And as you make money from that, as you get paid for excess, take that money and start on the RE, change your lights. So you get an impact earlier rather than later, right? You get money coming into you, the month after you put your system in, you start making some money, potentially, right? Whereas with the RE system, you might change your lights and you save $10. Then you get to the AC, then you save $20. All that takes time, and it's pulling money to invest in these various pieces of equipment. So this is perhaps a new approach, but it is one that I believe would give us a faster response, right? So that's my view on the whole issue of managing your RE and your EE together.
And what I would add is that I wholeheartedly agree that this is simply not an economic question. There are all types of behaviors, real world behaviors that are at play wherever finances are involved, and the energy savings are no different to, say, a salary increase. And while there are financial benefits, I do also want to stress that the quality of life enhancements, that also needs to be factored in, and a good mix is really what is needed. So I think what Dr. Bell was getting at is that as persons reap these benefits, part of the education process is to encourage persons not to expense away all of the benefits gained, but to look at how you can reinvest some of the benefits derived, whether that is investing in a rainy day fund for yourself and your family, so that should an emergency pop up, you're resting easy because you know that you have that reserve to help you through a tight spot. It could be if you are saving, let's use some easy numbers, $100, that you decide, okay, I'm going to $100 per month. I'm going to dedicate $30 or $40 of that monthly savings towards an investment in a retirement or pension plan, or in health insurance. So, you know, these are real world considerations. And going back to the whole premise, I would say that at the outset or prior to making the investment in the system, you shouldn't just be looking at your current consumption needs, but you really should also take into consideration what your future needs are. And that can be impacted by your family size, you know, the current layout of your property. Maybe it is that in the summer months, you are sweltering and you are just literally sweating bullets until the day comes where you have the option to install a inverter, AC with inverter attached, that can help make your living space a little bit more comfortable. Maybe that accounts for a portion of the savings derived from your energy efficiency overhaul, but it has tangible value to your entire family. So I think it's there is benefit both in a financial sense, but there are also less tangible benefits in terms of quality of life enhancements. And of course, my advice would be to strive to get a good balance of both. Don't expense away all of the savings that you're able to achieve, but have that long-term balance view of, I will save some, I will apply some towards maybe my family's future or my own advanced education needs, my health insurance, my retirement, those additional funds, but also some of those more immediate but pressing family benefits in terms of cooling, or maybe it's just the mere investment in going from an electrical heater to a solar water heating. Those savings can help to fund that next energy efficiency upgrade. So it can fund perhaps the fridge replacement. It can fund a more efficient washer or other appliance in a few years. So I think a balanced view is always the right way to go. You may be speaking on mute, Dr. Bell or Sheldon.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for your response. I don't know if Kathy has any more questions or if there's any other questions to be presented. If not, I think that this evening's session, I think, was very useful for persons to have a better understanding in terms of what the importance of energy efficiency and what it means for persons to even understand what their usage is like within their own households, so that they can make informed decisions in terms of what opportunities are there for them to improve their efficiency, as well as to get and obtain any savings within their homes in terms of their electricity bill. So that being said, we want to thank Mr. Blackman as well as Dr. Edwards for joining us this evening and sharing their perspectives on energy efficiency. But before we close, I'm just going to invite both panelists to just their final words, their takeaway that they want persons to be left with. I invite you guys to come on and just share what two lines, maybe a minute and a half. Just tell us what your takeaway is that you will want persons to have. So Mr. Blackman, says you're unmuted, you can go first, and then Dr. Edwards.
Sure, thank you, Sheldon. So I just really want to close by encouraging Barbadians that watch this segment, whether live or the recorded version, to really consider energy efficiency investments as part and parcel of their annual spruce up, whether it be for Christmas, for Independence, but let's incorporate these reviews as part of our psyche, as part of our approach to managing our households, because the benefits are far-reaching, not only in terms of the positive financial impacts, but also in terms of the environment, and also in terms, potentially, as we discussed moments ago, in terms of the potential quality of life for current and future generations. So that would be my final words of encouragement for those persons watching these segments.
All right, thank you. Dr. Edwards?
For me, nothing, not a lot more to add really. For people who are interested, I would recommend that they, contact the appropriate persons and places, meaning we have BNSI, we have FTC, have Ministry of Energy. I think these are institutions set up to help. Be careful with the sales pitch. Not talking about financial institutions, I'm talking about retailers who are looking to sell. Get your information before you go shopping. Do your research, get your advice, and then you go shopping so that you get what you deserve, and not necessarily what people may want you to partake in. So I think that's the best that I can do with such people. We can't just meet randomly and one person, but these institutions are there to help, to provide persons with information, not just about technology, but also about our environment, to make sure that they deploy appropriate technologies wherever possible. And BREA and other energy associations that may exist, that's why they're there. Feel free to call, email, make contact, and try to have those conversations before you go shopping. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Kathy?
Actually, for Sheldon, I want to actually close off by saying, I would say that what Dr. Edwards said earlier, I thought that was a really good idea, in that if you're at the lower end of the usage spectrum, so 3 kilowatt system, for example, his recommendation would be to invest in a renewable energy system, and then use the savings from that system to invest in energy efficiency in your home. And then the other thing that Gregory would have said that I thought dovetailed really well with that is that you should balance your life and not focus too much on looking at the numbers. So don't, the savings you get from the RE investment or the EE investment, don't push all that into more financial investments, more investments in EE or RE sphere, but just look to, provide some balance to your life. And I actually think that Dr. Edwards' suggestion is a good segue into considering that balance in your life, because you're paying back, you're getting money, and you're making money from the RE investment. And then you can determine how you want to spend that. You're not stuck on making back payments or anything, but you can, whatever savings you make from your RE investment, you can determine then and there to make that investment either in EE or just put it in a bank account somewhere or do whatever. But it allows you to have a balanced approach to transitioning into a more efficient and a more clean environment or home or being for yourself. I really, really actually thank you, and I appreciate having this session and having you two men on this panel. I think there was a lot for us to learn and gain from this session, and I hope that lots of persons listen to the segment, because there was a lot to learn, and it allows us to move forward with a goal to, yes, reaching our RE target, but also improving the efficiencies of our homes as we move forward. Over to you, Sheldon.
Yes, and that being said, again, we want to thank those who joined us. We want to thank those who are going to watch the recording. We want to thank the two panelists, Mr. Blackman and Dr. Edwards. And we want to thank Fair Trade Commission for hosting this session. And have a good night, all. Thank you for joining us.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Take care. Have a good Christmas.
Okay, good night. Merry Christmas to all.